Hello, everyone. I'm Michaela Wilkes with Liberty Counsel Action. Joining me today is Vice President of Governmental Affairs for Liberty Counsel and Liberty Counsel Action, Jonathan Alexander. Jonathan, thank you for joining today.
Thanks for having me, Michaela.
Yeah, so let's talk about the GOP 2024 party platform. On July 8th, the GOP released details of the 2024 party platform, including a forward looking agenda for the next term. And while the GOP outlined strong positions with securing our national border, defending our Constitution, opposing radical gender ideology, strengthening our military, and so much more, it failed to hold the line on recognizing the sanctity of human life from conception. And this is obviously a radical departure from the Republicans' historical position on life. So, Jonathan, why do you think the GOP platform refused to take a strong stance to protect life moving forward into this next term?
Yeah, it missed the mark. I think, the GOP, and certainly it's led by the Trump campaign, is afraid about the 80% of political funding from the Democrat Party that wants to hit on this issue. Certainly they saw what happened in Arizona. They've seen when the voters go to the polls, despite the GOP having historic pro-life beliefs, and I think most in the Republican Party still hold on to that belief, we haven't been the best at articulating that. This was an opportunity for us to be crystal clear about what we believe the value and the sanctity of life is. And unfortunately, it seems that we missed the mark. And it wouldn't be so bad if it was accidental, but this was intentional. The writing, despite it being shortened, could have been straight to the point. All we had to do is write unborn life had to be protected. And I understand that the party platform went from 60 pages down to like 16 pages, which is fine for clarity, but you can be clear about life. And so I think we missed the mark. If it was unintentional, that'd be one thing. The fact that the reporting coming out of what was done to the actual delegates, the minority population of the delegates, and really the party in general, and not properly going through RNC's own procedure in voting on the platform, that shows that it was more intentional and something that we will not be silent about. We have to continue holding our party accountable. We certainly can't find a home in the Democrat Party. This is the party that has to protect life.
Absolutely. It does seem very intentional. So, do you feel like the party is kind of pandering to Trump's stance, or is this an actual systemic problem?
Yeah, well, hopefully this party platform doesn't last past November. Now, there are certain things, as you mentioned, that are absolutely good. I think to Trump's credit, he is listening to where Americans are, and there are clear articulations of things that we've been fighting for. I like the strong position that there is on stopping gender transition surgeries. The left piles that into reproductive health as well. So there's strong areas there. But as was stated, this is an area that Trump hasn't spoken clear to, or where he's put his thumb on the scale hasn't favored the historical pro-life position. The Republican Party was founded to end slavery in 1850s. It was clear. They said the last vestiges of barbarism are slavery and polygamy. We're going to stop these things. And consistently for the past 50 years, we've been super clear when it comes to some of these moral issues. Unfortunately, because we see winning as the only end and not necessarily a principled approach to governing, it seems that the Trump campaign has influenced the RNC enough for us to take a pragmatic approach to this platform. I will say it does two things, one of which I'll just mention quickly. Especially when you do nonprofit work, and much of our work goes to other nonprofit organizations, goes to churches. We explain what the party's view is on biblical subjects, and we put that side by side, not ever pushing the voter to make a critical decision on the candidate, but just saying this is where God's views are on certain subjects, where the parties align or disalign to those subjects, and this is where your candidate will more than likely vote. And so it hamstrings us in a manner to communicate the message in a way that was more easily done when the platform was clear on the issue of life.
And now it's going to make it even more important for pastors to now say this is the biblical stance, even though the party didn't take this stance, this is still where you need to be as a Christian. Speaking of that, there are even voters, though, who identify as Christians and are not staunchly pro-life, though. So how do we get them to value now the sanctity of human life and support the historic GOP platform that once did take that stance?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Unfortunately, in the states that have put abortion on the ballot, you see a number of evangelicals, a number of individuals that voted Republican in the past still vote in favor of these abortion amendments. And so the work needs to be done. That work is done best with clarity. One of the unfortunate parts in the platform is that it does mention that we're against late-term abortions, which is basically a historically pro-choice position. It's saying, well, late-term abortions are fine. Well, doesn't the baby at every stage of maturity deserve protection? So it's an unfortunate part that when we did actually speak to it, we spoke to it in what could be a pro-choice fashion. So we have to continue the work that it takes to energize the church, to exercise the ability to vote according to biblical principles, and really not be concerned with much else other than making sure that we are fighting for life. You think, historically of guys like Frederick Douglass, who, had the issue of slavery as the forefront of his life's mission. And despite there being things, and there are good things here that deal with national security and other issues that are important to everyday Americans, certainly important to us as Christians, we have to start with life. That is our baseline, and everything builds on top of that. Without that foundation, it's really hard to make the moral argument for why we're pushing much of any of these other issues.
And it's actually kind of ironic too. The whole platform, the 2024 platform, was dedicated to the forgotten men and women of America. And it's just ironic because aren't the most forgotten lives the voiceless and the defenseless ones that haven't even been born yet? Going forward now, with the election being 3-4 months away, what does this mean for politicians on the state level?
Yeah, I think that's also important. So, obviously, with the huge federal emphasis, we're sort of forgetting how the platform informs down ballot votes, as well as how it informs state legislators. So, especially in difficult purple and blue states, one way to hold Republicans accountable on the abortion votes, on pro-life votes, is by saying, hey, your party platform says this. And you can whip the minority in these blue states, can whip the other members and say, if you want your priorities pushed forward, if you want funding for your district, you're going to have to walk the line when it comes to the party platform. And it's not a bullying or a mob approach. It's just holding individuals accountable to where they say they're placing their values. And so this matters, yes, at the federal level. There may be too much an emphasis on that if we're not paying attention to how this impacts the 50 other state legislators, as well as how it impacts the votes down ballot. So there's obviously a lot more work to be done. We're still energized and encouraged at the amount of work that has been done to save lives in this past year. Over 90,000 lives, if not much more, saved as a result of the work done to overturn Roe v. Wade. The pregnancy resource centers that we support, that we speak to, that we encourage folks to help with resources and donations, they're going to continue to do the fight that it takes for life. We're encouraged when our pastors talk about life, and certainly that's the mission of Liberty Counsel and Liberty Counsel Action. Our work is on a different terrain. It's holding our own folks accountable, but we're going to continue being about that fight to preserve unborn life.
It's the greatest fight that we can be in. Well, to end it out on a brighter note, give me 2 or 3 examples of where the 2024 GOP is putting America first and just keeping our country as a whole on the right track for the future.
Yeah, I am encouraged by where we wanted to be clear. We were super clear on closing our border, knowing who's coming into the interior of the country, unleashing American energy. That is something that puts American dollars back in our pockets. It'll refudiate against the inflation that has run rampant. It allows American businesses to be unleashed, the deregulation. There are so many things that are strong conservative principles, something that the previous platform didn't do that this one did. And I think you mentioned earlier, it's strong on parental rights. It stops gender transitioning. You know, these European countries are ahead of us when it comes to saying, hey, we're going to stop mutilating children in gender transition. We're clear on that. It stops the indoctrination in schools. There's so many elements here that we have articulated in the past 4 to 8 years that really are conservative principles that matter today that we're going to keep fighting for. You know, this is sort of a Thanksgiving Day conversation. The hard topics that we have to wrestle with as a family. You know, we're happy when we get it right, and we're going to keep fighting for the areas that we could be clear. Certainly, that area is life, but we're energized. We're not going to give up in this fight to ultimately restore the family, restore liberty, chief among them being religious liberty to this country. So we're engaged for the next 3 to 4 months up until this election, and certainly whatever Congress is in place, whatever president in place, we're going to remain engaged on fighting for our values.
Absolutely. It's game time. We've got just only 3, 4 months left. So thank you, Jonathan, so much. Thank you for breaking that down. And we can continue to fight for life, even when the platform may not be clear about it. We know as Christians what the Bible says. And so thank you for showing us that we just have to keep going and keep fighting from now until November and past that. So thank you, Jonathan. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Michaela.